To do my Darth Vader voice. The Force is strong. All right, everyone, thank you for coming. Hopefully this thing is working well enough so you can hear me in the back. Yeah? Okay. Sounds good. Mayor Reardon was going to be the person introducing you here. He had to pull out to go to another meeting about the Whittier School District, and so here I am. He wishes he could be here, and I'll have to fill him in later on how it goes. So today, I just wanted to quickly try to recognize some of the elected officials who are here in the audience. We have Councilor Jenny Donahue over here. And we have Representative Don Shan, who's going to be up at this podium pretty soon. Senator Bruce Tarr couldn't make it because of a conflict, but his assistant, Christy McDonald, is somewhere here. I see former Mayor Donna Holliday right here in the crowd as well. Someone please tell me if I'm seeing anyone. We have a number of city staff here, which I think is great as well. And, oh, I'm getting a point.
Sarah Hall.
Sarah, hello, there we go. All right, thank you. All right, so as noted, just in terms of the program today, Representative Shand is going to come up to the podium in a moment, and then I'll come back and try to give a little bit of context, an overview for what we're here honoring today, and then Glee Woodworth and Liz Walsh are going to step up and talk about the donors and more about the Once Known project, and Reverend Rebecca will come up and say a few words. And then to close out the ceremony, Liz and Glee are going to come back, and we'll shift attention to the 18 granite markers, which we're going to be physically placing in the ground, and that will cap off our event. So, Representative Shan, would you like to come up and say a few words?
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. I've been threatening to read poetry at one of these events, and I'm finally going to do it. So, I wanted to read The African Burial Ground by Yusuf Komunyakaa. The poem is set in New York City, but I believe it's as applicable to Newburyport today. The African Burial Ground. They came as Congo, Guinea, and Angola, feet tuned to rhythms of a thumb piano. They came to work fields of barley and flax, livestock, stone and slab, brick and mortar, to make wooden barrels, some going from slave to servant and half freeman. They built tongue and groove, wedged into their place in New Amsterdam. Decades of seasons changed the city from Dutch to York, and dream-footed hard work rattled their bones. They danced Ashanti. They lived and died, shrouded in cloth, in cedar and pine coffins. Trinity Church owned them in 6.5 acres of sloping soil. Before speculators arrived, grass and weeds overtook what was most easily forgotten, and tannery shops drained there. Did descendants and newcomers shoulder rock and heave loose gravel into the landfill before building crews came, their guitars and harmonicas chasing away ghosts at lunch break? Soon, footsteps of lower Manhattan strutted overhead, back and forth between old denials and new arrivals, going from major to minor pieties, always on the go. The click of heels, the tap of a drum, awakening the dead. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Representative. All right, the Once Known project. This is a collaborative effort, and It is, to some extent, it's under the umbrella of the Newburyport Black History Initiative, which I'm pretty sure most of you are aware of. The mission of the Black History Initiative is to affirm Black history in this community and belonging in Newburyport, and to try to ensure that some of these stories of the community's early residents, early Black residents and workers, neighborhoods, businesses are publicly accessible as possible to a broad audience. And we're working to expand the spotlight of these stories, and working with lots of different individuals and organizations to highlight these histories that have been, at least up until recently, largely forgotten. So the core of our project is the installation of these high-quality signs, interpretive signs, that are going in mainly in the downtown, but also events and lectures and tours and indoor displays and all sorts of things. And there's information on the city's website about the Black History Initiative. So burial grounds. The broader context of this project is that in Massachusetts, as well as elsewhere, 18th century, 19th century Black Americans are a somewhat invisible presence and sort of seldom discussed presence. I would hasten to add, with the significant exception of Glee Woodward's tours and scholarship over the years. Yeah. But throughout New England, Black Americans back in the 18th and 19th centuries, people were often buried at the edge of burial grounds. And here we are at the edge of the Old Hill Burying Ground. Auburn Street has been here for some hundreds of years. Right across the street was the historic Black neighborhood, so-called Guinea Village. And at some point, Glee realized that there's a particular grouping of headstones here of 18th and 19th century Black Americans, Black Newburyporters, right here. And during this time period, only a few Black Americans were given permanent gravestones. These stones that are here, they really commemorate just a fraction of the many people who lived and died here over the centuries. We've just installed a new bronze plaque up on the granite seat block up on top of the knoll there that identifies this section for what it is for visitors now and in the future, and a seating stone where hopefully some people can sit and contemplate this beautiful and peaceful area. In addition to the handful of headstones with people that we can identify, and there are some old stones that we can't identify, there's a number of Black Americans who are buried in unmarked graves, or graves that were ephemerally marked back in the day. And that's certainly both here in formal burying grounds as well as elsewhere. And I would note that across the country, many historic Black burial grounds have literally been erased from the landscape. That's whether through indifference or neglect from local governments, or deliberate forgetting, sales to developers and so forth. There are a lot of these sites that are now underneath golf courses and parking lots and housing developments and industrial complexes and so forth. And in recent years, there's been a number of groups that have risen up to try to identify these areas and defend them and preserve them for the future. So Glee, with her extensive knowledge of this burial ground, she surmised for quite some time that there were unmarked graves in this vicinity. So through the Black History Initiative, we were able to hire a ground-penetrating radar operator who could come here. And ground-penetrating radar is the standard approach around the world to identify unmarked graves, because it's a non-intrusive way to see what's underneath the surface of the ground, those sound waves bouncing off of disturbances in the soil and other objects that are buried. And here, it turned out that GPR identified at least 18 unmarked graves in this vicinity. It's pretty close to impossible. We've tried to identify today who these people were. And you know, as we did the GPR, someone said we really need to mark these graves permanently so they don't get lost again. And then we came up with the idea that rather than having a blank marker or a marker that says unknown, and there are other cemeteries, national cemeteries, that have the word unknown, we thought we would use the phrase once known. And once known, to us, unknown has a bit of an underlying connotation that perhaps their names were never known. But that, of course, is not true. They're only unknown to us. And once known is an increasingly used approach in museums, the MFA, and down in Beverly, the Peabody Essex Museum, museums in a number of other countries are using the phrase once known to refer to people who made art and artifacts and so forth, but whose names were not recorded. So once known, we think, reminds us more of the individual person that is here, and it reminds us also of the erasures and the erosions of memory that have occurred as the generations have gone by. So as my colleague Cabria Baumgartner noted, the characterization of once known also leaves open the possibility, no matter how slim it might be, that maybe they'll be known in the future. So all these men, women, and children were individual human beings who were once known in their time, even if we no longer know their names today. So Glee Woodworth and Liz Walsh are going to come up here and tell you about the donations they gathered for this project, in addition to the funding from the Community Preservation Committee and the City Council to fund this project. Glee and Liz.
Thank you, Jordy. This is truly a community event, so thank you so much for being here and also contributing.
Special thanks to Dawn for that beautiful poem. It reminded me of how I felt when I came the day that Glee was doing this project. I was so moved. And I went home and I called my daughter Sarah and said, guess what? They're going to make actual granite markers, but it's going to take a really long time because we have to go through the city budget. They have to make a proposal and get all these, you know, it's a long, long time. It was going to take maybe 18 months. And my daughter said, oh no, it doesn't have to take 18 months. How much are you talking about, Liz? And so I said, about $3,500. And she said, oh, we'll just get donors. We'll get it going. And sure enough, we did. So a big thank you to all the donors. We're here over a year before we would have been. So I'm going to read the names of the donors now. And you don't have to clap for each one. Lois Honiger, Fordyce and Margaret St. John, Kathleen Murray, Regina Coria Bronco, Ellie Bailey, Sarah and Matthew Hall, Liz Walsh, Eva Davis Lee, Susan and Bartlett Harvey, Betty Lavender, Mary Gentili, First Religious Society, Reverend Rebecca Bryan, Linda Harding and Hugh Martinez, Marge and Skip Motes, Newburyport Lions Club, Jean Nicholson, Carol and Jeff Kimball, Beverly Galatian, Lucian and Judy LaCroix, James Supple and Mary McDonald. Hooray! Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. As Jordy mentioned, I've been doing some tours and slideshows on early Black history, and just since last April, there have been over 430 participants in 9 events and tours. Over 400. That's incredible. So thank you. So I have some thank yous. Certainly Jordy, we talked about it, and about ground penetrating radar. This has been a dream for years of mine. I kind of put it aside, and then I got back into it the past 3 years, because I said, I know there's people here. I just know it. I know it. I feel it. And so I researched a little bit of GPR, and I talked to Jordy about it, and he was able to come up with the, was it CPC, Jordy? Yeah. Yes. And Mike Doucette is here, and Paul, I don't know whoever else for the committee. Thank you very, very much. And I want to thank GeoSearch out of Sterling, Mass. I called Tom Belsky. I read about their company on boston.com, and they went to a school because the school lost their time capsule. And so they went to do GPR, and they found the time capsule. I thought, okay, called him up. Tom, hi, this is Glee in Newburyport. And he said, oh, sure, we can do that. So Brother Edmund came, and his picture's right over there on the poster board. So thank you, GeoSearch. It only took, once we were set up, he took about 40 seconds right over here, and he found the first unmarked grave. And he was here for about 2 hours up on this hillside. Thank you to Mitch Khaleesi and his dad, Khaleesi Monuments in Methuen. They worked with us on this granite marker. Mark Brophy, who came out quick on Sunday to mow around the holes that I had just finished digging. And of course to all the donors and all friends. Really, really appreciate it. So just quickly, an overview. Did Port of Newbury have slaves? Yes, they did, all right? 1783, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts abolished slavery. The census records here in Newburyport in the 1780s, there were about total population about 4,800. In the census, there were 60 black men and women. Then comes the 1840s. The population increases to $10,000, mainly because of the railroad. There in the census were about 100 black residents. And then pushing towards 1900, now Newburyport has about 14,000 residents, and there are about 50 blacks in the community. Not that many, very small number. As Jordy mentioned, Guinea Village. Where does the name Guinea come from? West Africa, where the slave trading center was in West Africa, Guinea. And there were many Guinea villages in New England. Boston had a Guinea village, Rhode Island, and it was the name where early black residents lived. And so here on Auburn Street, down through Low Street, remember the bypass did not get built until 1938. And over here on Pond Street was the area where early black residents lived. By the mid-1800s, the African Americans lived throughout Newburyport, all the way down for Joppy, all the way to the north end. So here's some recollections. George Parsons in the Newburyport Daily News in 1893, he's discussing his memories of down in Guinea. And Parsons recalls some of the residents who lived here in the 1820s and 30s. He says, residents included Titus Pickering, George Paul, a fine skater and sportsman, Fred Fatal, who worked at the Boston Custom House, barbers Andrew Raymond, John Young, and Charlie Jackson, the acrobat John Phillips, William and Joseph Brown, Mrs. Taylor, and Mara Loring. Many young men attended Master Coolidge's school on Bartlett Mall. Sarah Emery, she lived from 1787 to 1879. She was an author, and she's remembering. It was old Cambridge, who could remember being kidnapped when a child and brought to this country in a slave vessel. She recalls the woman who washed clothes and mended clothing for income. And Black Luce was a famous nurse. She was known, and Luce was a very good friend of Lord Timothy Dexter. A very good friend, and took care of him. Other Black individuals Sarah remembers: Clement Paul, a genteel waiter, was a favorite in the upper circles. Joe Fatal worked for Colonel Greenleaf, and Jimmy Paul, Sip Burnham, and others were useful members of society and respected citizens. Now behind me, let's take a look at who we know. The small slate stone on your left belongs to Fortune. On it is written, "Faithful servant, died July 16, 1804, erected by Tristram Dalton, Esquire, the Speaker of the House of Reps, a senator, and he's buried over at St. Paul's. Recognize the Dalton name? The Dalton House on State Street. Now, Fortune has a grave stone, but his family does not. Is his wife buried here? Probably. We don't know. Then the next stone to the right of Fortune belongs to Susanna Cogswell. And there's no other family members here. She died in 1805. It is laying flat because it's broken and it's just beyond repair. Then there's John C.H. Young, a barber. And his stone is the white marble behind Fortune on the left. And it's beautifully written on the front. He died in April 1889 at 72 years old. He was a barber on Union Street and Market Square and Elbow Alley, just through Market Square on the right. And it is written, "A colored man of many virtues, poor as the poorest. He fed the hungry, clothed the naked, and was a father to the fatherless. Kind and obliging to all, he has finished his course and has gone to rest." This tablet is erected by his friends. To the right of John is another white marble stone, belongs to Nancy Haburn, and we think, with some research, it's probably his mother-in-law or his wife's aunt. Now, John's wife doesn't have a stone. Is she buried here? Probably. And then up on the hill, way over on the right, see the two small slate stones. And the small one belongs to Mercy Small, and she was only 7 months old when she passed away. And her parents were Prince and Phyllis. Could her parents be buried there? And then to the right is a stone with two names, Enoch Garrison Loring. He died in 1835 at the age of 15. And there's Franklin James Douglas, and he passed away at 33 years old in 1836. Is it possible more family members are buried around them? Yes. So we're not really sure, okay? But we are here to honor all of them. Now I'd like to introduce Reverend Rebecca of the First Religious Society Unitarian Universalist here in Newburyport.
Thank you, everyone who has spoken and all who are dedicated to this work. It really matters. It is so important. All of the anti-racism initiatives that are here in Newburyport and in the surrounding towns and across our country, all of our work on repair and reparations, these matter. They make a difference. The Black History Trail, the markers in the city, unfortunately, the defamation that we just saw with that, the DEI Alliance, celebrations of Juneteenth, the work that's done like this and all of the tours that Glee offers, and so many other things that I'm sure that I have forgotten. Remembering is all part of reparations. It is a deceptively simple thing that we can do to remember as an act of reparation. To remember is to actually feel what all of this means. I'm going to read a few statistics that you just heard and then lead us through a brief exercise. Because it's really easy to hear these statistics or even hear names and keep ourselves up in our head. So in 1815, Newburyport, as Glee just said, had 10,000 residents. 100 or 1% of those residents were black people. By 1900, the population had grown to 14,000 people, and the number of black residents had dwindled to 50 people, or 36% of 1% of the population. Today, at least as recent as I could find online, Newburyport has a population of 19,020 people with 107 black people, or 0.56% of 1%, so just over half of a percent. As I said, these are not easy numbers to take in, and yet every single one of those black people, including the 107 that live here today, are people. People who have lives, stories, family and friends, gifts and talents, shortcomings, dreams and losses, joys, hopes. And so this is not a white city. This is a city that has people that live here and that visit here and that come here. And there's so many acts and steps we can do to make this a welcoming place, to make this a place where everyone is known and seen. And one small thing we can begin to do, it is not so small, is to, and I say this in our own church, is to stop talking about it as a white community. Paula Estes said this the other night at another gathering. It's really important that we realize that, because every time we say that, we are erasing not only the people who have died, who were not white people, but the people that are here today in all of their diversity. So let's go through a quick, well, not so quick, I'm going to take about 2 minutes and do an exercise with all of us, because the thing about difficult things in any way, certainly around this topic, is that we can live in our head. We can live in our head, and as any black person will tell you, they don't get the choice when they wake up every day to know and remember and live with the fact that their skin happens to be black or brown or whatever shade it may be. Those of us who have white skin or more clearly white skin, we can pretend to forget that. So I'd like to ask us now to just do an exercise, be a little vulnerable, and begin by breathing into our bellies, and actually literally put your hand on your stomach. And as you breathe into your stomach, which by the way is where all memories live, and emotions, history and compassion, breathe into your belly and feel it rise. Feel it get big with knowing. And then as you exhale, your belly will come closer back into your spine. And we're going to do this about 3 times, and then I'll talk us into the next step. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and exhale. And if your mind is starting to work, bring yourself back into your stomach. Breathing in, breathing out. You may begin to feel some movement. This time, as we do this and we begin to exhale together, I invite us to begin humming a low, even tone together. And we'll do this 3 times, and your hum may change a bit. Join in. And one last time, and you may even find your lips beginning to move together. As we stay in our place of memories and our feelings, listen to the words of Frederick Douglass and see these people who are once known and hopefully now known. Frederick Douglass wrote, "When it is finally ours, this freedom, this liberty, this beautiful and terrible things, needful to people as air, usable as earth, when it belongs at last to all people, when it is truly instinct, brain matter, diastole, systole, reflex action, when it is finally one, when it is more than the gaudy mumbo-jumbo of politicians, this man, this Douglass, this former slave, this Negro beaten to his knees, exiled, visioning a world where none is lonely, none hunted, none alien. This man, superb in love and logic, this man shall be remembered. Oh, not with rhetoric, not with legends and poems and wreaths of bronze alone, but with the lives grown out of his life, the lives fleshing his dream of the beautiful, needful thing. And so we remember. We will begin to lead us through the ritual which everyone will participate in.
Okay, as a lot of you have been on my tours and presentations, I do like participation together, right? So, you see all those once known markers? We are going to install all those markers, all right? So there are 18. For those of you who do not want a hill workout, there are 4 markers close by. Grab your chair if need be, and everyone choose a marker, go to the once known marker, and turn around and face this way. You may touch the marker. Please don't move them. Now, if you're in fear of bending over, wanting to touch the marker, and if you're concerned that you won't be able to get back up, there's plenty of us who can haul you back up into a vertical position. Okay? All right. So everyone choose a marker. There'll be many of you at each marker. And turn around and face this way, please.
Well done.
Okay, how's everybody doing? All right, still people are moving up the hill. That's all right, take your time. Okay, now we're going to have what's going to happen is we're going to have a call and recite with me. Then Reverend Rebecca will say a blessing. And then on a count of 5, we all together will install the marker. Be aware, These once known markers weigh almost 20 pounds. So if you feel the need, two of you can get on either side and just gently place the stone, or not so, gently, and placing the stone in the hole, install it. Now, I will come back later to backfill and so forth. So, and level it, so don't be concerned about that, okay? All right. Now, we are going to speak to these folks here that we don't know names, but we're going to speak to them. So everybody, after me, we honor the history of our Black community. Honor the history of our Black community. We are telling your stories. We're telling your stories. Thank you for your contributions to Newburyport.
Thank you for your contributions to Newburyport.
You are remembered.
You are remembered.
And I invite us now into a shared blessing for these people and being known and remembered. So look at the stone, look at the hole, look wherever you're drawn. And if it's easy enough, you may even want to touch it. And then maybe someone can touch the others. The speaker. Turn the speaker. You heard Lee. Did she yell louder than I do? Okay. So I was saying, as we're going to move into a blessing together, I'd like to first ask everyone to look at either the hole in the ground or actually at the stone. And if someone or someones in your group can actually physically touch one of each, and then if you aren't able to get down, you can touch the shoulder or back of someone who is. But so that everyone here is literally touching these places, these people, these lives. And so as you're there in that space, and I invite you to join me now as you send love and blessings and respect to this person, to these people, to all of who they were, their lives, their family, their friends. Ask, if you are so willing, for their forgiveness, for all of the difficulties and the pains that Black people have experienced in this country. Make a personal promise on your own right now to your commitment to continuing to work for a place where everyone is recognized for who they are, where people of all colored skins, and especially Black, brown, and indigenous people, are seen, are safe, are respected, and are part of every community that they choose to be in. And now wish well to this community as we continue on in our shared journey toward wholeness, toward spiritual wholeness. Bless yourselves, bless these people, bless this city, and bless our country. Amen.
Okay, everyone, let's count down from 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
And tell everybody your experience today and come back and visit.